share her testimony with you. And if you know Heidi at all, you know the story of what's happened in their lives over the last 3 years in particular. And there's some backdrop to that as well. I wanted her to share it with you because as her pastor, it's been my, I'd say privilege, but it's hard to have been working through grief. It's been my privilege to watch God uniquely at work in her life and her children's life. And through the tragedy that they went through with the loss of her husband. And so I've asked Heidi to come. It's going to be through many tears, so we're going to walk this through together. And so Heidi, why don't you come on up? And we love you. You're among friends. There you go. I'll stand in.
Get my notes out. Okay, hang on. Not used to microphones. Okay, so my name is Heidi Ewens. For those of you who don't know me, I have 3 amazing kids. My youngest daughter was singing this morning. My son often plays the bass and the electric guitar. And I have an older daughter who is away at college, and so she's just home on weekends. Anyway, so I've been going to CLF about 6.5 years now. And like Dave said, I am going to share something very personal and sometimes very emotional for me to share. So just as a little preface, I went to H. Norman Wright, I think that's his name, a grief seminar recently here in town. It was very good. And anyway, in that he said that tears are a gift from God. So if God blesses me with that this morning, then we'll just let that be what it is. Okay. About 7 years ago, thanks. About 7 years ago, our world was rocked pretty significantly. Anyway, my husband Brad, who some of you got the chance to meet before he passed away, but others didn't. Anyway, he was a very, very good man. I'm sorry for those of you who didn't get to know him. He was going through a really hard time. There was transition at work, and anyway, he was struggling with anxiety and depression. We were worried about him, trying to support him. Anyway, long story short, there was a Sunday morning in August, and we were getting ready for church, and I couldn't find him, so I went to look for him and found him. And he had shot himself in the head trying to take his own life. But he was alive, and he went to OHSU and was up there for about 5.5 weeks in rehab and fighting for his life. And we got to see God do an amazing miracle. First, in the fact that he even lived through that, because that's very rare. And secondly, just in the healing that God did in him. It took time, but over time, his mind was pretty much completely healed. He did have some deficits. He had a loss of hearing in one ear and some constant ringing with that. He had neuropathic pain that was chronic and continual, and his face was palsied on one side. Anyway, we came back home, and after about 5.5 months of rehab and healing, he was able to return to his job as a pharmacist in Weimar and Sutherland, and we kind of, started trying to get back to life. And then around 4 years later, after that, around the 4-year anniversary of his attempt, he started getting depressed again, as anniversary and difficult days can do to you. Anyway, we were concerned again, although things didn't seem to me as bad as the first time. On September 27, 2012, he took his life. It was sudden, unexpected, and devastating. Oh. So, then I'll get on to my testimony. That's the background. So, I guess like Dave alluded to, I guess this is where I feel like my testimony is a little different. I don't know if that's really fair or if that's just my perception, but it does seem like oftentimes it's easier to get up and talk about something that you went through that's really hard, and then everything turned out just great. And we all like that, right? We all like things to wrap up neatly and to be okay, and sometimes they're not. And so, anyway, you know, I feel like it's been 3 years and God's done an amazing job healing us, and he's been with us. But to some degree, we're still in the midst of dealing with this as a family. So it's not a neatly wrapped up story, but it is a story of God's goodness and of his faithfulness and of his grace. So, you know, as you might imagine, through these last 3 years, I've wrestled a lot through regret, guilt, God's sovereignty, depression, anger, everything you go through, you know, when you go through loss, and then all the other stuff on top of it too. You know, and we want to piece things together, and we want to understand. We want there to be a reason, and we want to know why something's happening. And I've come to believe, just my belief, that, you know, if God wanted us to know what he was doing, he would reveal it to us. And sometimes he does that, right? There are times in our life where he seems to let us know why something's happening or what's going on, and that's great. But there are times he doesn't. And I think we need to learn to be okay with that. And I think it's not only futile, but sometimes even harmful to try to impose what we think God might be doing on the situation, because we really don't know. We really have no idea. His ways are greater than our ways. And so that's just where we trust him with those unanswered questions. And, you know, suffering, pain, loss are a part of everybody's life. You guys have gone through hard things and will go through hard things and have experienced loss. So it's not unique, you know, what I've gone through. But what is really important is how we respond to the events. And I guess there's two things that I've learned that are just really important when you're going, you know, when you're going through a hard time. And I'm telling you things you all know, but we just all need to be reminded sometimes. So, you know, the first is, you know, when we're hurting, our theology and our doctrine gets really simple. And it's okay and it's good. And we hold on to really simple, basic truths, and we hold on to them for dear life. And the first is that God is good, you know, whether we see it or not, whether it looks like it or not, whether we can make any sense of it or not. God is good, not just like in character, like, yes, we know he's good, like he's good to me. He's good to me. He's good to you. He's good personally to us. Everything he does is good. Everything he allows is good somehow. And so we trust in who he is, what we know of him to be true, not in what we see or what we can make sense of, and that's really crucial. The other thing is, oh, wait, yeah. My notes are better than me ad-libbing. Okay. Thank you. Oh, yes. And he adores us. I love that. He really does. He is so near to the brokenhearted, and he hears our cries. The other thing is that we need to turn to him, not away from him. It's really easy in pain to want anything to take away the pain, to want to feel better. You know, I get why people do things that they do sometimes that aren't healthy and good now. I didn't get that before. But I understand why people do things, because the pain is very hard to handle. So we need to be sure that we're turning to God and toward God. Even if we're angry or whatever, we take it to God. We wrestle it through with God. We don't turn from him. And we don't stop coming to church, and we don't stop being around believers, even though we don't want to be around anybody. You know, it's really, really important, because Satan is going to get us when we're down, and we need to be sure we're being supported and that we're, you know, clinging to God in those times. And we remember that, you know, he's with us in all of those times, even if the pain doesn't stop and it seems unbearable and we can't see that he's with us, we know that he's there. He's holding us up and he's giving us the ability to endure even when we don't see it. And we trust that because we know that of him. And but there are times, and you guys all know this too, when you've gone through hard times where God is so good and he gives you, a friend to pray with you, or you reach out and he gives you someone to pray with you, or you read a verse and it brings you comfort, or somehow he comforts your mind so that you can get a few hours of sleep. And even if the peace doesn't last, he gives you those moments of comfort. And so when we see that he's done that for us, we just thank him for that. It's his goodness to us in that. And that he does it, and that he allows us to see that he's doing it, showing us his care like that. So that's all. I'm just reminding us all of that. And then I'm going to close with a verse that I love. It's a verse, Brad died the year my older daughter graduated. So on her yearbook page for graduation, I wrote a verse. And this is the verse I chose for her. So it's something I pray for her, my kids, me, just all of us as a body. And it's very simple, but beautiful, I think. So it's Deuteronomy 30:12. It's that you may love the Lord your God, that you may obey his voice. And my favorite part, that you may cling to him, for he is your life and the length of your days.